Sometimes a particular level in a video game will strive to capture the feeling of a certain season. You're probably familiar with these scores of different winter levels, all with varying degrees of Christmas to them, or maybe Halloween themed levels, which balance the... Hey, wait a minute, this is my script from the Honey Hive Galaxy video. How did that happen? I can't just reuse something from an earlier galaxy again with barely any changes. That would be ridiculous. On a completely unrelated note, let's talk about the Goldleaf Galaxy. From the viewer within the engine room, the Goldleaf Galaxy should look familiar right away. If your suspicions are aroused at this point, they'll be full-on confirmed when we land. The main planet in this galaxy is a mirrored version of the main one from the Honey Hive Galaxy, with an autumn sheen spread over it. This galaxy's entire existence might be the most perplexing thing about Super Mario Galaxy. Because don't get me wrong, I like the Honey Hive Galaxy. I love it, in fact, but a mirrored version of one of the levels in the same game? The reason that this is a 15-part series is because Mario Galaxy has 15 main worlds, which is a decent number, sure, but it's not like it's so many that they needed to start recycling things. The fact that Super Mario Galaxy 2 exists proves they had no shortage of ideas for galaxies, so why would they repeat this one? Seeing this galaxy with its autumn glow is nice, but they easily could have created an entirely new bee-themed level with this aesthetic. A mirrored world gives me the impression that it would be evil in some way, or at least have a sinister underbelly. But the Goldleaf Galaxy is just as happy and welcoming as Honey Hive. I don't say all this because I dislike the choice. The galaxy's missions justify its existence perfectly well, so the only reason I can think the developers would include this quirky copy is simply because they liked the Honey Hive Galaxy a lot and had more ideas for it. I think that it might have made more sense to save this one for Super Mario Galaxy 2, but I assume they didn't know that they'd be making a sequel during the development of this game. So now that we've established how similar these galaxies are, let's talk about the differences. The biggest one is that there's no central tunnel or back portion that it leads to. Instead, the other planets are spread out in ways we'll explore as we move forward. The top right portion, which is the top left in the Honey Hive Galaxy, is immediately accessible in Mission 1. Up here, the bee mushroom is handed to us with no fanfare, seeing as we've become quite acquainted with it at this point in the game. The rolling rocks are smaller, the hidden area is a lot less hidden, and now there's a sling star to take us up to the top of the cliff. Overall, these are minor differences, but at least they did change some things up. However, do you know what the biggest and most important difference of them all is? Well, it's that instead of the star bits in the sky spelling out an M for Mario, it's an L for Luigi. I guess this makes the Goldleaf Galaxy the little brother of the Honey Hive Galaxy, the little brother that everyone likes more. Our first objective here is to gather the 5 star chips. We've done this a million times at this point, so it should be no problem. Thanks to the bigger area, they are fairly spread out. None are difficult to find, but it is nice that they take advantage of this large open space. There's one over on this trampoline, one over on top of the fountain, one between all these stumps, one in this box, and one more with these piranha plants. Once we get them all, we can pull ourselves to the launch star. It'll take us to the only other planet we'll be visiting on this mission, the big round planet that I like to call the Big Round Planet. The goal here is to catch this one bunny, but before we do that, I want to call attention to these sliding blocks. They appear only on this planet and only in this galaxy, which leads me to the question, why? They're not necessary to catch the bunny. In fact, I'd guess that most players just ignore them on their chase. So why go through the trouble of creating a unique item that appears exactly one time in any Mario game ever? Clearly, the designers are operating at an intellectual level that mere peasants like us can't even begin to comprehend. Chases in big flat areas like this can remind us how slow and limited Mario's moveset in this game is. So hitting this button to raise the walls is a necessity. Maybe it's possible to catch the rabbit without them, but I've never tried it, and I have no interest in doing so. So let's take the tactic of kindergarteners at a bowling alley and raise the bumpers. Aha! I got you with nothing but my skills alone. Now in the next mission, we'll see another familiar face. Well, maybe not so much a face, more like a giant head. The title, Cataquack to the Skies, should immediately give any player of Super Mario Sunshine either warm memories or terrifying flashbacks. Before we get to that, however, I want to point out just how nice the framing on the landing shot is. We can see our destined launch star and its arc right there in the distance. This is what we in the business call a good job. As we run forward, we can also see that the danger has been cranked up a notch, thanks to the increased frequency of these rocks. Only the most daring Super Mario Galaxy players will be willing to enter into this territory. Once we make our way to the top of the hill, we meet the first of many Cataquacks. Of all the creatures in Super Mario Sunshine to make a return in Galaxy, I don't think anyone but the most deranged individuals would have expected it to be the Cataquack. In the environments of both games, they look unequivocally out of place. In fact, I struggle to think of an environment where they would look in place. They don't even look like animals, more like robots that Dr. Eggman would build. They're not exactly enemies to Mario in the same vein that Koopas and Goombas might be, but it's hard to interpret their thirst for launching Mario up into the air as anything other than hostile. But as many questions as we have about the nature of Cataquacks, we do actually get a bit of lore surrounding them. If we talk to this bee, he'll inform us that they're native to this planet right behind him, which we'll be visiting soon. How they got from that tiny planet to Isle Delfino, we'll probably never know, but at the very least, we know what questions to ask. Mysteries of their alien origins notwithstanding, their vivacious spirits are exactly what we need to progress through the level, so let's consider them unknowing allies. Besides, if we ever get sick of one, a quick ground pound will put it out of commission for a short time. This first one serves to get us to the upper right area. This will take us to another couple of Cataquacks, which in turn will take us to another Cataquack. With this last guy launching us, we can get all the way to the top of this tree. Its unusual geometry makes it seem like it should be out of bounds. Of course, it isn't because there's a bee up here we can talk to, but I appreciate that they left it feeling raw and unsanitized. From here, it's just a quick run over to the launch star. We'll land right on some water, which will take away our bee suit if we have it on. This is a smart way of accomplishing this, and it shows a great method of taking a power-up away from a player without the use of time limits. I have a lot of fun just messing around with the Cataquack here, seeing where he launches me and trying to make myself dizzy. If we're wondering where we need to go next, a clever camera angle will tell us all we need to know. They still put a Cataquack symbol on here, which I think would be needed if the designers weren't able to manipulate the camera to such a beneficial degree. Less is more sometimes, and you don't want instructions to be too clear or else the player won't feel like they've figured it out for themselves. Next, we're on this grassy cube planet, which looks and feels very similar to the one back in the Gusty Garden Galaxy. However, instead of chasing something like we did there, it's us being chased by, you guessed it, a Cataquack. Though maybe it's less of a chase and more of us leading it around like a distracted puppy. This is a fun challenge because it's both a three-dimensional maze and an abstract tug-of-war match with an AI. However, I do think the designers missed an opportunity here to stock this guy with some items that we could only grab by means of the Cataquack. As it's set up now, it's easy to get accidentally launched. And when this happens, this could have been when the player gets a glimpse of some digital goodies. But anyway, once we get it into the final position, we're taken to what might be the skinniest planet in Super Mario Galaxy. I want to warn you, if you haven't thrown up yet while watching this video series, which I wouldn't blame you for, this might be the time it happens. While this planet is the definition of a straight line, I don't like to treat it with any sense of linearity. This is just another one where it's fun to mess around and see what kind of crazy jumps we can pull off. If the long jump is your best friend here, the Cataquacks are the crazy, unpredictable guys you meet at the long jump's bachelor party. You don't necessarily want to hang out with them again afterwards, but for the time while you're there, you welcome the X factor that they bring. Once the party's over, it's time to move on to the Cataquack's homeworld. First of all, I have to call special attention to the beautiful camera angle we see when we land. It shows us both where the star is and the path to it perfectly. It's a great way to bookend this mission, harkening back to the perfect landing shot we saw in the beginning. While the perspective from the galaxy's primary planet may render this one small and insignificant, it actually boasts a considerable amount of activity. It's probably one of the only planets in Super Mario Galaxy that somewhat resembles a real planet, as it has a number of different environments and creatures on it. There's an ocean complete with seashells and whatever these things are. There's land, some of which has grass, flowers, and different animal species on it. And then there's this Jenga tower, which we could consider to be either a mountain or a man-made structure. I don't think I'm going too far in saying that this planet has something resembling a real ecosystem. At least more of a real ecosystem than we've seen in any other Mario game. The bee suit makes a return here, and once we get it, we start looking at the water that covers half the planet a whole lot differently. Once we make our way up to the top, it should be smooth sailing. Okay, let's forget about that. Once we make our way up to the top, it should be smooth sailing. Just a few flowers to walk on and we're at the star. So let's move on to the final mission of the Gold Leaf Galaxy. When it rains, it pours. When we go over and talk to this first bee, he'll tell us about the observation deck and how it's the pride of their galaxy. This will require a bit of cognitive dissonance because it wasn't there in any previous missions in this world. Maybe they just built it and it's already their pride. Who knows? It wouldn't be a mission in the Gold Leaf Galaxy if the bee suit wasn't involved. And we can go ahead and grab the bee mushroom here. We should be well familiar with how Bee Mario is able to walk on the flowers that regular Mario can't, but this level will introduce another element to the mix, the clouds. Like the flowers, regular Mario also can't walk on them, but Bee Mario can. The flip side to this is that if we get caught in their rain while we have the bee suit on, we'll lose it. This makes the clouds both a utility and a hazard. Not a very punishing hazard, mind you, but still a hazard nonetheless. I do also wonder if the clouds in this mission served as some sort of inspiration for the cloud suit in Super Mario Galaxy 2. Walking on clouds certainly isn't an idea that's unique to the Mario Galaxy games, or even the Mario series, but I think the similarities here are strong enough to point to some influence. The next portion of the course is straightforward, starting off with a line of clouds that Mario has to be careful to go on top of, but not underneath. Next, we're traversing through a series of wooden platforms, avoiding the rain and the mandibugs. The wood goes very nicely with the aesthetics of the level. It gives the entire thing a treehouse vibe, and all blends together in a very cohesive way. Next, we make our way up to the tower section, where Mario will be required to hide in the rain, much like you might do on the street in real life. The shadows that the rain clouds cast provide some much needed clarity on where they start and end. And the fact that they don't hurt us, just set us back a little, makes the whole thing appropriately forgiving. Once we get up to this part, the question mark coin will create an arrow of star bits, which feels entirely unnecessary. The fact that there's a trampoline right here makes where we need to go as obvious as we need. If they wanted to just reward the player with some star bits here, that's fine, but an arrow adds instruction where it's just not needed. The last bit of our climb up will see us swinging on a twirly vine, which is an element we haven't seen in a while. From here, we make our way up to the boss. Clearly, the moles of Super Mario Galaxy have gotten smarter as the game has gone on, trading the brawn of Major Burrows for some more sophisticated technology. This guy shoots water at us, which doesn't do damage by itself, but it can catch us in a position that will push us onto the spiky floor. We'll also lose our bee power up if he hits us, which doesn't do any damage, and the bee suit isn't required for this fight, but we would rather have it than not. We have to be careful to watch out for the rain cloud when we climb up to him, but from there, we're ready to give him a ground pound. One detail I really like is how he visibly panics when Mario is on top of the glass. He knows what's coming and there's nothing he can do to stop it. A couple more hits and then we're on to be able to collect the star. And so that finishes things up for the Gold Leaf Galaxy. I think when looking at the whole thing, the main question we have to ask about it is, does it justify its existence? Is it distinct enough from the Honey Hive Galaxy to stand on its own? And to be honest, I don't think so. To me, the highlight of the galaxy is definitely the second mission, Cataquack to the Skies. The majority of it takes place off the main planet, and the other planets are unique enough and have enough going on with them to really make them stand out. But the first and the third missions primarily take place on the main planet, which at the end of the day is just a mirrored version of the one on Honey Hive. In the first one, we spend most of our time collecting star chips, which means we're just exploring a place we've already fully explored. The third mission has a different enough environment with the tower and the lead up to it, but it comes and goes too fast to make a lasting impression. When I was planning out this series, my original idea was to just focus on 10 of the main galaxies, likely the ones that stood out to me the most. I didn't decide which 5 I'd end up cutting, but one thing I knew for sure was that this one would be the first on the chopping block. Of course, I ended up extending this to a 15-part series so I'd be able to cover every main galaxy. But when I decided to go with this, I had a bad feeling about this episode. I really didn't know if I'd have enough to say about it to substantiate its own video. But I couldn't do a video on every galaxy except for one, that would be weird. So I had to just go ahead and make the most of it. And so while I still don't have as much to say about this galaxy as most of the others, I'm still happy I ended up making this video. It has some great moments that I was able to highlight, even if it doesn't do much of anything that other galaxies don't already. Looking back at the Gold Leaf Galaxy now, I do wish the developers had just made an entirely original level with the same aesthetic, rather than reuse so much of Honeyhive. Even if it didn't do that much new, it would have at least stood out more. Super Mario Galaxy is a game where every level feels so innovative and unique, except for this one. Maybe there were budget and time constraints that forced them to make this one a copy of Honeyhive, but I'm certain that there was no drought of creativity that would have stopped them from making something more independent. And if you want to see an example of a galaxy that shares a lot of the same visuals and gameplay styles of another, you'll need to look no further than the next video in this series. Tune in next time where we'll be racing with sharks, mocking our elders, and questioning the logic of penguins with eyebrows in the Sea Slide Galaxy. I hope you'll join me there.